Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I extend a cordial invitation to all who are interested to visit my channel. Before embarking on this narrative, I kindly request that you take a moment to express your approval and indicate your intention to remain informed by subscribing to my channel. I assure you that this is a straightforward request, and your compliance would be greatly appreciated. I recognize that I may not possess the same degree of intellectual prowess as some of my fellow men when it comes to matters of the heart. However, I am confident that I am not alone in this observation. Indeed, it is a sentiment that many men, myself included, have expressed on numerous occasions. It is evident that they are aware of their existence and comprehend their nature. However, this assertion is not entirely accurate. Unlike the majority of men, I am merely attempting to comprehend the nuances of this phenomenon and to conduct myself in a manner that is as optimal as possible. Nevertheless, I recognize that my lack of understanding has led to a prolonged period of self-realization regarding my shortcomings in navigating the intricacies of the female psyche, particularly in my own relationship. My wife exhibited signs of disrespect and betrayal for approximately 5 months before I decided that if there was smoke, there might be fire. As the old song goes, we married in a fervor hotter than a pepper sprout. I found Catherine, courted her, and married her during my 1-year period of college. In my 3rd year of college, I was pursuing a degree in party management at the University of Oklahoma at Stillwater when she entered my life. My primary focus was on hotel and restaurant management, while partying was an extracurricular activity. I also held a position as a bouncer at a well-known establishment. College bouncers, known and popular for their expertise in maintaining order on campus, were assigned to different posts within the building to perform their duties. Our responsibilities included greeting visitors at the entrance, examining documents, and monitoring the crowd to ensure the safety and security of all patrons. The bar had an upper floor, and one of us was always on duty at the top of the stairs to prevent patrons from falling. During my tenure at the establishment, I rapidly gained insight into the characteristics of female representatives, discerning which were amenable to negotiation and which were not, and which were occasionally amenable to negotiation. When stationed at the top of the stairs, I could observe the majority of the lower floor. From my vantage point on the balcony, I observed the interactions between the women and the men on the ground floor. Some women were engaged in negotiations with 2 or 3 men simultaneously. Some men attempted to purchase drinks for the women, presumably with the intention of taking them home or to their cars, where they could engage in further conversation in a more secluded setting. As the evening progressed, many young women requested drinks from men who appeared to be inebriated. This occurred shortly before closing time, either after the last call or slightly earlier. Subsequently, a significant number of these women left the establishment with a young man. The young women would then be permitted to leave through the rear exit, which led from the hallway to the restrooms. This often resulted in considerable frustration for the men, and on numerous occasions, one of the bouncers was compelled to offer advice in order to pacify them. I was aware of which of the young women frequently engaged in this strategy. As a public servant, I cautioned my acquaintances and, on occasion, a male individual whom I found attractive but who, in my opinion, did not merit such attention. I did not consider it appropriate for discussion. I allowed others to become overly excited. On a Saturday night following a home game, I was working and observing inebriated individuals behaving in a foolish manner when this remarkable woman fell into my arms. The term drunk does not adequately describe her condition. She was completely inebriated and claimed to be unaware of her location. She was unable to locate her companions, who she claimed were with her. I deduced that I had never observed her in the company of these women. They were among the most unruly groups that could exit the premises undetected after consuming alcohol at no cost. I was reasonably certain that they had departed. It was after the last call, and they typically exited when the last call was announced at that time. Catherine was literally in my arms when a man approached her. The man was requesting drinks. He glared at me and grabbed her arm. "Come on, Kelly," he said. "We need to leave." I was already beginning to believe that she had disappeared because of me. Well, now I believe I know her name. I was about to release her with the young man when she came to her senses and looked at him questioningly. "My name is not Kelly," she said. "It's Catherine." "Who are you?" she asked. "Why should I go with you?" With you, may I inquire as to the whereabouts of Cindy and the other girls? I was scheduled to accompany them when the bar closed. The man abruptly grasped her hand and stated, Kelly, Catherine. It is of no consequence. I have been purchasing you drinks throughout the evening, and now you are coming home with me. Catherine came to her senses once more and attempted to rise and disengage from the man. She appeared frightened and stated, I do not know you. The man attempted to pull her away once more, but she resisted. I concluded that she was unfamiliar with him and did not wish to leave, so I proceeded to drag her to a chair and position myself between them. Young lady, it appears that the lady is not inclined to accompany you. Would you kindly oblige her request and leave the premises? His expression transformed into one of intense hatred. His face took on a look of intense anger, and he pushed me away. If you know what's best for you, leave it. I moved away slightly and grabbed his arm, then swiftly twisted it behind his back. He let out a scream of pain when one of my fellow bouncers approached. Are you in trouble, Dave? No. The man had attempted to take the woman with him, but she had refused to go. He had been unwilling to accept a negative response, but I believe he has now grasped the situation. Nevertheless, I proceeded to apply further pressure to the man's arm, which elicited a renewed cry of pain and a shift in his stance to tiptoe. It became evident that he was attempting to free himself. I then escorted the man to the door and stood at the edge of the sidewalk. I gave him a slight shove and stated, if you wish to leave, you must do so now. We have your picture, so I do not wish to risk further trouble on your part. Otherwise, we will have to contact security. Upon returning to the building, I observed a couple of waitresses crowding around Catherine. She suddenly lost consciousness in her chair. I was correct in my assumption. Patty then looked at me and said, Dave, Catherine lives in my dorm. If you help me get her back to the dorm and put her in her room, I can take care of her from there. I proceeded to do so, and that is how I came to be involved in this situation. I was subsequently regarded as one of Catherine's most favored individuals. On the following Friday evening, I was engaged in my occupational duties when I was approached by a woman of striking appearance who embraced me, kissed me on the lips, and then departed. I inquired as to the significance of these actions. Patty informed me that I had prevented her from being taken home by an unnamed individual on the previous Saturday. Subsequently, you transported us back to the dormitory and assisted her in conveying me to my room. I am uncertain as to what would have transpired had you not intervened on my behalf. I was previously unaware that he and my misguided companions had employed the strategy of consuming alcohol and departing through the rear exit at the conclusion of the academic day, without my knowledge or consent. I was expected to accompany them, but they did not wait for me. Instead, they simply departed without my awareness. I did not even hear them. I did not answer the phone, so the caller was unable to reach me. Over the following 2 years, Catherine was a constant presence in my life, acting as my protector. We developed a close relationship and began dating shortly after I saved her. After graduating from high school, we married. Catherine has certain expectations of me. She enjoys social gatherings, dancing, and consuming fine food and wine. We are fortunate to have secure employment and no dependents, which affords us the financial flexibility to pursue certain luxuries. However, our current financial situation does not allow for such indulgences on a regular basis. This discrepancy often leads to disagreements, particularly when it comes to spending money. My parents are quite affluent, and their wealth has influenced our financial decisions. They own a sizable farm, along with nearly 4 plots of land in our hometown. Additionally, they possess a substantial investment portfolio. When I inform Catherine that we lack the financial resources to pursue a particular endeavor, she frequently responds by asserting that if I were more adept at securing funds from external sources, I would have already done so. She further suggests that I should return home and assume a leadership role alongside my father, with the aim of generating significant income and achieving a high level of financial success. I informed her that my objective at this position is to gain practical experience and learn the methods employed by prominent professionals in the field. Upon the retirement of the resort manager, which is expected to occur within the next 3 years, I intend to assume his role. However, this timeline does not align with Catherine's expectations. I began to receive disparaging remarks regarding my capacity to earn a sufficient income. To pay our bills, Catherine would occasionally leave after work with her friends and return home exhausted. Over the past few months, I had to arrange for her to be picked up or pay for a taxi on numerous occasions. However, approximately 5 months ago, this ceased to be an issue. Nevertheless, she still came home agitated, and I frequently had to accompany her to the office the following day to retrieve her vehicle. On occasion, I was compelled to transport her to her preferred establishment, where she would retrieve her vehicle. However, I was never responsible for the fare or for providing a lift on 1 or 2 occasions. I discovered her asleep on the living room floor when I arrived home the following morning. I was perplexed as to how she had gained access to the premises, given that she had apparently collapsed on the threshold. After a series of heated exchanges, I elected to ascertain the veracity of the situation. I took the action that many men in similar circumstances have taken. I purchased dictaphones and placed them in Catherine's purse, in her car, and even in her office, hidden under her desk. I tapped our landline phone and acquired the necessary equipment to copy her calls from her mobile phone. The information I uncovered was disturbing. My affection for her was profound. She had engaged in an extramarital relationship with one of her colleagues at work. Many late nights and Saturday shopping trips with her female friends over the past 5 months had been her connections with Gregory Anders. He was one of those obnoxious salesmen that one typically finds distasteful. Greg was arrogant, had an insinuating smile, and Gregory was the highest-paid salesman in the company, and his father owned it. This afforded him a certain degree of privilege. When I reduced our visits to expensive restaurants, I also reduced the amount of entertainment, buying fine wines, going to expensive performances, and so on. Catherine complained at work about how I treated her badly. Gregory noticed that Catherine was unhappy and began to follow the women during their night walks. He spent money on them. He provided them with drinks and demonstrated a lifestyle of opulence. He then proceeded to cultivate a relationship with Catherine, initially through lunch at an expensive restaurant. After she became accustomed to his lavish lifestyle, he invited her to dinner at upscale establishments. A few weeks later, Catherine yielded to his advances and began engaging in sexual intercourse with him. He began issuing directives, and to my astonishment, she complied. His generosity was a significant factor in her compliance. I even had recordings of him instructing her to refrain from sexual intercourse with me. He informed her that he did not wish to receive second-rate sexual intercourse and demanded that she ensure a minimum of 24 hours elapsed between her sexual encounters with him and those with me. He stated that he would leave her if she failed to comply. To engage in sexual intercourse with my partner after she has been intimate with someone of a lesser caliber, regardless of the method employed, it is imperative to ensure that you are free of any external contaminants before seeking my company. Our lives soon became characterized by Gregory's frequent absences, which coincided with his business trips. Sundays, however, were a day of respite from his wanderings. On Sundays, she was unavailable, so it quickly became my only guaranteed day of love. I have to admit that I was indifferent after I discovered the truth. I kept her by my side for as long as I could, simply because I was preparing for a divorce. Fortunately, I had only been married for a relatively short period of time. After approximately 27 months of marriage, I discovered that my wife had been unfaithful. She was angry at being called Kate, so I began to refer to her as something else. We rented a fairly nice apartment and purchased 2 new cars. She, of course, wanted a BMW. I was quite pleased with my 2010 F. I purchased a 2015 Ford F-150 Super Crew 4x4 new when we graduated from college. When we went somewhere, she refused to go in that old truck and insisted that we go in her car. We rarely go out together anymore. I am merely engaging in sufficient contact with her to maintain her ignorance. Today marks the beginning of my revenge on Kate and Greg. She has a date with him tonight. She plans to meet him at the mall at 6 o'clock. The time is 30 p.m. In the evening, they will have a drink and then have dinner at a new French restaurant. Subsequently, they will go dancing. She informed me that she was going to a baby shower with the other women. Kate exited the shower at 5:30 p.m. She began to dress, indicating her intention to depart at 6 p.m. This would allow her to reach the mall in time to meet Gre. I waited in the hallway adjacent to our bedroom until she emerged. I then entered the room and embraced her. I kissed her and began to rub her. Damn it, Dave. Stop. I have to meet the girls at 6:30 p.m. I must decline your invitation, as I lack the requisite time. Furthermore, your actions will undoubtedly result in the ruin of my makeup. I am sorry, but I require your company. How about making love quickly? No, I am unable to accommodate your request. I kissed her and then withdrew. She screamed that I had ruined her makeup and that I had stained her. She proceeded to the bathroom to clean up, but I then proceeded to physically restrain her and escort her to the door and down the hall, as we passed the table where she kept her purse. I retrieved the purse and handed it to her. I apologized for the delay and informed her that I had needed it. I then said, "Here's your purse. If you hurry, you can still make it and not be late." I also told her to give the girls my regards. One might be forgiven for assuming that I was responsible for making him late. However, I informed them that I was sorry but that I needed to get myself cleaned up. I explained that I could not go to the city like this. At this point, Catherine turned back to her car, glaring at me. I was tempted to laugh, but I restrained myself. I then heard them kissing and moaning when they entered his apartment. In the apartment, there were a multitude of rustling sounds. I then heard Kate utter, "Greg, I'm sorry, but Dave compelled me to engage in sexual intercourse with him before I departed. Allow me to clean up before we retire for the night. I cautioned you against allowing that individual to approach you." I then discerned a slap and Kate's subsequent scream. "Now, proceed to the bathroom and attend to your needs," she commanded. I proceeded to clean up, unable to discern any further auditory stimuli due to the apparent absence of Kate's purse in the living room. My actions had evidently provoked a strong reaction from Greg, and the intensity of the situation suggested that I had indeed slapped Kate. However, I did not witness any visible signs of injury, leading me to conclude that Greg had merely struck her. Nevertheless, given the history between them, I was not surprised. I ultimately decided that my revenge was over. I had arranged for everything to be in place to hand her the divorce papers during her Saturday date. I even provided Greg's wife with copies of the recordings and photos I had obtained. However, I did not have any pictures of them engaging in sexual activities. Instead, the photos only depicted them having dinner, dancing, and kissing in his car. I had reached my limit. I had paid for Kate to be served after she and Greg arrived at his apartment in the city. It was, in fact, an apartment rented by his father's company for corporate visitors. Both Greg and his father had used Kate for their extramarital affairs. They were not married to each other. I had also been considerate enough to send Greg's furthermore, photographs of his father and his secretary engaging in sexual intercourse were also provided. It would have been more ethical to refrain from such actions. The staff encountered Greg and Kate in the lobby of the condominium after he had served her. He then handed Greg the letter I had prepared for him. The processing server informed Greg, "I was instructed to give you this letter, Mr. Anders. Mr. Stevens. He has delineated his actions to you so that you are aware of what has transpired over the past few months and what you can anticipate upon your return home next time. In the letter, I have set forth the documents I have against him and Kate, as well as the fact that I have provided them to his mother and his wife. Furthermore, I have inquired of him whether he enjoys receiving my I informed Greg that I ensured that each time Kate visited him, I sent him a piece of myself so that he could engage in sexual activity with her." Greg became enraged and struck Kate twice before the security personnel intervened and removed him from the premises. I heard the altercation and subsequently heard the security personnel contacting the emergency services. I was concerned for Kate's well-being. I did not wish for her to be physically harmed, yet I was unsure of how to respond to Greg's actions. I received a call from the hospital requesting my presence to complete some paperwork and facilitate Kate's discharge. I informed the representative that I was unable to comply with this request. Kate and I are in the process of divorcing, and she does not reside with me. Would you kindly contact her romantic partner and request that he pick her up? I will, of course, do so. What is his name? What is his number? I provided her with Greg's name and phone number. She paused for a moment, then said, Sir, I'm sorry, but I can't call Mr. Anders. Your wife is in the... I was informed that Mr. Anders had assaulted her severely that evening and that he was currently incarcerated. I provided 2 additional phone numbers, which I believed might prove useful. The numbers were for Kate's parents and one of her 2 closest friends. I am unaware of the individual who ultimately picked her up. It has been nearly 4 days since I have heard from her. I subsequently left. On Wednesday evening, Kate was waiting for me at my vehicle. Upon seeing me, she slowly exited her vehicle and approached me. Kate had tears in her eyes as she stopped in front of me. "David," she said, "I would like to discuss everything." "Kate," I replied, "there is not much to discuss. You cheated, and I have discovered your infidelity, and we are now proceeding with the dissolution of our marriage. I do not wish to proceed with a divorce. Dave, we must resolve this matter promptly. I am currently homeless. I implore you to allow me to return home. I will be better able to cope with the situation if you permit me to make amends. However, I am certain that this will not occur. I have learned that you have taken up residence with Greggy. Love Nest," she said, "why don't you move in with him and his father? I'm sure they'd be happy to take care of you." I walked around Kate and got into my truck. When I closed the door, she was standing there crying. She didn't move until I was out of sight. This was another thing I didn't understand about women. Kate worked full-time and earned almost $36,000 a year. Over the course of her lifetime, she had earned almost $36. I am perplexed by the discrepancy in financial resources. Why did Kate not possess sufficient funds to rent an apartment, as I did? Furthermore, I am at a loss as to why she relocated to this apartment with Greg and his father. The police report revealed that Greg and his father severely assaulted Kate, resulting in her demise 3 days after hospitalization. She believed she was Greg's romantic partner and anticipated marriage following the dissolution of their marriage, as evidenced by a statement she provided to the police before her death. These circumstances have left me with a profound sense of disquiet. In my pursuit of a better life, I inadvertently caused the demise of Kate. I was consumed by a desire for vengeance and, in a moment of recklessness, I requested more drinks from the bartender. I was intoxicated and detached from reality. Then, without warning, I was struck by a forceful blow to the head. I was surrounded by numerous individuals, some of whom were visibly distraught. I looked down at the figure of the goddess, who was gazing at me with a look of shock. She collapsed to her knees in front of me. "David, is that truly you? Why did you consume such a quantity of alcohol that you fell off your bar stool? Patty, I would inquire as to your well-being, but I am uncertain if you are in a position to respond. Please, assist me in rising and ascertain whether you can be sobered up to a certain degree." I was able to speak without any problems. Patty demanded to know what I was doing there, so inebriated that I recounted the entire account you have just read. As a result, Patty, I have killed her. I am unsure of my next steps. I held her responsible for her actions, but I did not wish for her demise. Patty sat in a state of shock, she gazed at me with her mouth agape. Eventually, she wrapped her arm around me and embraced me firmly. "Dave, while some of your actions were regrettable, you did not kill her. That is the responsibility of Greg, who ultimately took her life. You could not have foreseen his actions." Patty sat, gazing into the distance for after a period of time. Dave responded, "You know, Greg, you are partially culpable as well. I regret that I did not inform you about Catherine while we were in college. Frequently, in the evenings when she was not spending time with you at Joe's, she would go out with a man who had a large wallet. I am uncertain as to where you think she procured the funds for the costly attire she was wearing. I did not inform you because you were not exceptional at the time, and I genuinely believed you would not fall prey to her machinations and wed her. You were gainfully employed at Joss and were thus aware of the type of individuals who frequented that establishment. Consequently, I am not entirely at fault. I must accept some responsibility for this situation as well. Even during our time at college, I observed Patty and recognized that she was not the ideal partner. I find it challenging to comprehend the nuances of female psychology. I believed we were on a positive trajectory, Dave, but I've come to realize that not all women share your perspective. If I adhere to these criteria, I may have to reconsider my options. You because all men look like Gregory, right, Dave? I know that's not true. I've been working with you for 2 years, so I know what kind of person you are. How many women have you brought home and put to bed when they were so drunk they could have been raped if someone hadn't take care of them, Dave? It is important to recognize that women are like men. There are those who are kind and decent, and there are those who are not. There are female players as well as male players. Look for the good ones and do your best. We may think differently than men, but it is not that difficult to understand. Patty smiled and pulled at my hand. Let me take you home. Where do you live? If you are truly interested in learning something about women, I will give you some lessons on how to understand them when all this settles down.